All right, picture the scenario for a second. You got two people. They're going to buy identical pieces of property, $300,000, 20 acres, and this person, person A, pays $5,000 a year to hold on to that land. This person, person B, pays $15,000 a year to hold on to that land. Almost $1,000 a month difference between these two properties. And why? Well, some people are just looking for cheap land, but the people who understand what they're doing are actually looking for cheap ownership. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the 4 states where land will actually make you money over time and not bleed you dry. Because here's the real story. Insurance has gone up, interest rates have gone up, taxes have gone up, and just about every one of these videos that you see talks about appreciation of land. But I wanted to flip the script a little bit, and I wanted to talk about, hey, what would it cost to hold land for 10 to 15 years? Because at the end of the day, this is an investment. We're trying to make money here. So I'm going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to give you the 4 states that I recommend in the next 60 seconds. And then after that, I'm going to break down the math behind it and get deep on it. So real quick in a nutshell, here are the low holding cost states. The first one is Idaho. It combines very low effective property tax rates and below average insurance costs, and surprisingly, they have cheap power there for the West. The second one's West Virginia, and West Virginia is often overlooked, but the insurance savings alone can be thousands of dollars a year, and with low taxes, that's just a cherry on top. I talk about Tennessee a lot, and Tennessee is known for no state income tax, but what really matters here is the property tax rates under 0.5% and power that's fairly predictable under the TVA. And then the fourth one's Arizona. Arizona's got low taxes, they've got mid-range insurance, and there's enough power cost stability to make up for the water drilling that you may need to budget for. And this is a good time to remind you, if you're looking in Texas, I can run 10-year numbers for you just about anywhere in the state, so reach out to me if you need help with that. And if you're looking at any other state, I've got contacts all over the place, from contractors to lenders to realtors. Let me know if you need help in a certain area, and I can get you information on who can help you out. Okay, now that we got the states out of the way and you know kind of where to look if you're interested in that area, let's dive deep. Let's talk about the 3 levers that are going to be most responsible for eating away at your return every year. The first one of these, I've mentioned it with every state that we talked about already, is property taxes. It's the obvious one, right? Every year, if you have property taxes, you're going to end up paying money to the government just to own that land, regardless if you use it or not, whether you put anything on it or not, whatever. You're going to pay property taxes on it if there's a property tax in that area. Now, the bad thing is once you go in to build on it, your property taxes can double or quadruple. So yes, that's going to eat into your return every year. You need to understand that up front. The second lever is insurance. And if it's just raw land, a lot of people don't think about insurance on that raw land, but liability coverage wise, you may want to consider it. Also, as soon as the structure goes up and there's financing involved, okay, you are going to have insurance and there's no way to get around it, right? If you've got financing, you're going to have insurance. So make sure you consider this ahead of time. I always talk about, make sure you've got an insurance broker. Have somebody that you can call and have conversations with. Because the bad thing about insurance is when you're like, it's hard for them to work in a world where there's not a finite thing like, I have this, I want it insured at this, give me a quote for A, B, and C, and these are the 3 different ways that I want it quoted. Okay, if you don't have the ability to do that, most insurance companies will just kind of look at you with this blank stare. Find you an insurance broker that you can trust, and you may have to interview multiple. And in terms of trusting them, either A, get a referral from somebody like me, or B, start calling them up on the phone and just talking to them. And here's your first kind of little pro tip. If you're talking to somebody and they find out that you don't have a structure in place, that you're just wanting to talk about the possibility, if they sound annoyed or if they're trying to get off the phone, find somebody else, because you don't have time to jack around with somebody who doesn't think you're serious, who doesn't treat you seriously, who doesn't answer your questions and take the time to deal with you, okay? Insurance is a big thing. It can get really, really expensive. The rates have spiked pretty much across the entire U.S., especially in areas where you have wildfire danger or hurricane, hail, windstorm damage, stuff like that. Insurance rates have gone way up, but have the ability to call somebody, talk to them. I would like to build this type of building. How do I get an idea of what it's going to cost for my insurance? Be able to have that conversation with somebody. And then the third bleed usually isn't as big, but it can be significant, and that's power, electricity. What are you going to do? If you don't have it in place, don't worry about it, but if you put a cabin out there, it's going to be a consideration. If you have electricity, a lot of electrical companies will charge you a certain base amount every month, regardless if you use anything or not. And I've seen those base amounts as high as $60 a month, $600 a year over 10 years. That can kind of add up. The other thing is, you may say, oh, I'm going off grid, I've got solar panels. Well, is it going to cost you 20 grand or 10 grand to put your solar panels in? All right, that's a significant upfront cost. And then what happens if you get a hailstorm and it knocks your solar panels out? Do you need batteries? Okay, great. You have a battery backup that your solar panels are charging, but batteries go out and you have to replace batteries. So again, that's another charge or another fee that could pop up that's going to run that carrying cost up. Are you going to run it with a generator? Okay, you're going to have fuel. What are you going to do to heat the house? Are you going to chop down a tree? Okay, that's fine. But do you have to bring in propane maybe? And that's another one of those energy costs. So electricity, energy, that type of thing. Again, one of those slow bleeds that a lot of people don't consider, especially if they're buying raw land. They don't consider it up front, and it can eat into your profit down the road. And when you're thinking about these three levers, they vary from area to area, right? Electricity costs vary, insurance rates vary, taxes vary. So that's why I spelled out those specific 4 states, because if you take a state like those that that I'm talking about, and you compare it to somewhere that is not as friendly in term, maybe one of the Carolinas, and say, hey, I may be looking in West Virginia, I may be looking in Virginia or one of the Carolinas, get you a spreadsheet together and get those fees side by side to be able to take a look at it. Because if you've got carrying costs of $3,000 in one state and $6,000 in another state per year, okay, $3,000 a year over 10 years, I mean, that's potentially the foundation for your slab, or that's your entire solar array, right? So understanding that, oh, it's a $3,000 difference. No, if you extend that out, look at what the government does with the CBO. They extend things out over 10 years, because it's not like you have that carrying cost for 1 year. It's that same carrying cost every year, and so it amplifies itself. So make sure you have a little spreadsheet up front to compare the different areas where you're looking at this and estimate out what is the difference of carry costs going to be between the states. Case in point here, let's do a case study. We're going to look at some math here. If you're looking at West Virginia versus Texas, and everybody hears Texas is a great place to retire, doesn't have income tax, things like that. Well, let's look at these 2 states, because West Virginia is one of the 4 that I recommended. In West Virginia, if you had a $300,000 build, you're looking at roughly, taking the cost of the build, $1,650 a year in property taxes, about $1,911 in insurance, and roughly about $1,900 in power or electrical costs. That's a total of about $5,400, $5,500 a year. In Texas, that same build on average is going to be about $4,400 in property taxes, over $3,800 in insurance, and about $1,827 in power. That's $10,000 a year. Guys, $4,500 a year difference in carrying costs between Texas and West Virginia. Again, $4,500 a year over 10 years, $45,000. That can build you a cabin. And because I like numbers, let's take a look at another case study. Idaho versus Missouri. Idaho's bill on the same $300,000 build comes in at about $4,800 a year. Missouri, closer to $7,900 a year. That's $31,000 saved over a decade simply by buying land in Idaho versus Missouri. And at that, some people may be like, oh, I know, but that Table Rock Lake region of Missouri, that southern border, and you got Branson and you got all this stuff. Guys, have you been to Idaho, especially up in the Panhandle? There's absolutely beautiful land up there. And in the winter, does it really matter if it gets down to 10 degrees or negative 10 degrees? Seriously, nobody's going to be outside in that crap anyway. You're going to be inside stoking the fire. So just because you may have had your heart set on one place, I still encourage you to think like an investor and take a look at some of these other options. And if it ends up being cheaper for you, see if there's a spot that you might like. I mean, heck, that's what vacations are for, right? Get out there, go find an Airbnb, or go rent an RV and shoot up into that area and see if you enjoy it. You may enjoy it even more. And now that we've got all that broken down, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper for each state. All right, let's start with Idaho. It's going to combine a very low property tax rate. The average is just under 0.5%. Average insurance premiums of under $2,000 a year. And the cost of power there, if you find online, it's roughly about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. And the thing is, for the Mountain West region, 12 cents a kilowatt hour is really, really rare. And I did a case study for somebody recently who, again, was comparing Idaho to Missouri. That's why I did that one earlier. The Idaho land was going to save them about $2,500 a year. So by year 3, they had to budget to build a metal shop and a solar upgrade, things that actually add value to the land. Now, nothing's perfect. Before you go buying land in Idaho, water can be really, really deep. So if you've got to dig a well, it can be expensive. So get in contact with drillers in that area, well drillers, and find out, hey, what's the average depth of the water in this area? What is it costing to dig these wells? Because that hole in the ground that you're putting in the ground to bring water out, that is a real fixed cost. So make sure you understand that before you jump in with both feet. Okay, let's talk about the good and bad of West Virginia. West Virginia is probably not on a lot of people's radar, but it absolutely should be. The taxes are, again, really low, just over a half of a percentage point. And insurance is some of the lowest in the nation at under $2,000 for a $300,000 bill. So even though power is kind of average for the country at around 16 cents a kilowatt hour, the insurance savings way more than make up for it. Speaking of West Virginia, I was looking at numbers for somebody that bought land, about 12 acres in the Greenbrier Valley, and they were moving from a higher cost state. It saved him over $4,000 a year. I mean, by year two, that $8,000 he saved, he was putting in a driveway with that money. So again, when you reduce your carrying cost, those can yield tangible benefits, things you can see on the ground that are going to increase that value of that land. Now, even though West Virginia is absolutely beautiful, parts of it can be really, really steep. So putting in driveways can be more expensive. Make sure you figure that in, especially if it's a larger property and you got to kind of switch back it down. Really, really high cost for that. And this isn't something that's exclusive to West Virginia, but if you're thinking about building somewhere that has snow, take into account, at least in your head, the cost of your construction is going to be a little bit higher for a couple of reasons. One, you probably have a little bit deeper freeze line that you have to get the foundation in below, but also your engineering and your structure is going to have to be a little bit different for carrying a snow load. Okay, let's go a little bit further south now and take a look at Tennessee. Tennessee is really going to shine with property taxes, again, under a half a percentage point, and they really have stable power costs in the TVA territory. Insurance there is going to average around $3,000, which is a little bit higher than what we were talking about with the other two states, but when you compare that to somewhere in Tornado Alley or, the hurricane states down along the coast, $3,000 a year is still really cheap. And the downside about Tennessee is it's a really long state. It's got a lot of varied terrain, which I know it doesn't sound like a downside. It's good, but on the western half, you're really going to have to look out for tornadoes, wind coverage for insurance, hail damage coverage for insurance. So on the western part of the state, your insurance costs can go up quite a bit. And the other thing in Tennessee is certain counties have what they call, I believe it's called an adequate facilities charge or fee that you have to pay. So it's basically an upfront fee so they can raise money for whatever they're doing, infrastructure wise. But, ask about that upfront. If you've located a county in Tennessee that you like, find out if you're going to have that fee upfront. Make sure that you can factor that into your overall budget. And then digging deeper into Arizona, I mean, obviously, we know western half, desert, southwest of the United States, we're going to have to deal with water issues in Arizona. But beyond that, Arizona is going to, first of all, it's going to give you an effective property rate of around 0.44. So that's the lowest effective property tax rate out of all four of these states. Insurance is also going to be below average, around $2,500. Again, just a little bit over Idaho and West Virginia, cheaper than Tennessee. Power costs are going to be mid-range. Again, it is in that western portion of the United States where power is a little bit more expensive, but the big wild card I mentioned here is water. Wells can be really, really expensive to build, and you also don't always have the ability to dig wells. Make sure you have water rights or you understand how to get water if you're looking in Arizona. And again, if you need help finding local people in any of these states or whatever state, let me know. I can reach out to my contacts. I can find you somebody local to wherever you're looking that'll help you out. And the water is not even the thing that you really have to look out for in Arizona, even though it is one of the ones you have to look out for. But one of the things to always ask about in Arizona is what's the policy on an electric line extension? Some places you're going to be able to find that they'll extend it a certain distance and they won't charge you for X number of feet, and then every foot after that they charge you. Some places they'll charge you for every foot that they have to extend. So make sure when you're taking into account, if you know you're going to buy in Arizona in a specific area, make sure you take into account and understand what that line extension fee is going to be if you build something that you need electric to. Now that we've kind of talked all about holding costs and how to minimize those things, if you're going to buy land to build something, whether it's a short-term rental or a weekend getaway or your dream cabin in the woods, you're always also going to have to manage the hard costs up front of utilities. So let's talk a little bit about utilities. The first one again is, and we talked about it in Arizona, is getting water. So depending on the terrain, depending on what's in the soil, I've seen costs for wells, 200 feet deep that can go from 6,000 to 16,000. And then if you have to go through something hard like basalt, that number can double. So again, have that well digger, or better yet, have multiple well diggers you can reach out to and get an idea on what the cost is. A lot of times they'll give it to you in a per foot basis. It may cost $1 a foot or $10 a foot, whatever it is. Find out an idea of what that's going to cost you. The second hard cost, if you're building something out, is you're more than likely going to need a septic system. What kind of septic system and how big? Just so you know, septics are based on the number of bedrooms, not the number of bathrooms. You have to have a minimum size, so you can't say, oh, I don't have any bedrooms in here, I don't need a septic system. You still need a septic system. But I've seen them as cheap as yeah, call it $4,000, and I've seen them $40,000, depending on the soil, how the soil perks, what are the local regulations, what are the state regulations. So there can be a huge, huge difference in the cost of septic systems. Again, having local resources that you can reach out to and talk about things like this up front is going to save you a lot of headache in the long run. I mean, hell, you might find an area that you absolutely love, but they're all like, septic systems are going to cost you $35,000, and the cabin you were going to build was $40,000. You're like, well, I'm not going to spend the same amount of money on my septic system as I am on my cabin. I'm going to go look in a different state. So make sure you know that up front. The second fixed cost, and we kind of call it a fixed cost, it's a hard cost, permitting fees, and some areas charge impact fees, right? It's kind of like a way to, it's just a way for the counties to make more money. Now, these are usually at the county level, or if you're in Louisiana, the parish level, but reach out to the county and find out, hey, I'm looking to build a cabin. I want to put in septic and I want to put in water. Can you give me a fee sheet, or can you show me where, where it's going to cost me to permit this? Can you tell me what the environmental impact fees are going to be? Can you give me a timeline on approval of the permits? Because I've seen permits take 9 months, 10 months. That screws up a timeline, and it's going to extend your carrying costs before you can put something into a mortgage, maybe. So, make sure you're asking those questions up front. Reach out to those counties where you're looking, and see if they can help you out. Again, most of the time when you call a county office outside of a metro area, those people are going to be really helpful, and they're going to want to help you out. So don't be scared to call them. And then the other one, and we mentioned this in Arizona also, is what are the power drops going to cost you? What are those fees going to look like? And again, this varies from company to company, from power distributor, I guess is what they're called, to power distributor. So I know for me personally, they gave us, it's based on what you're putting in, right? So if you're putting in a standard house, call it, 3-4 bedroom house, okay, they're going to charge you one rate because they know how much energy you're probably going to use. If you're going to put in a cabin, they may charge you a different rate for extension. Or, if you're putting in a house, they may give you, 300 feet for free. But if you're not putting in a house, if you're only putting in a shop or a cabin, they may not give you that first 300 feet for free. So talk to those power companies. Some states you might have delivery fees from different, you might have 5 or 6 of them that you can choose from, but figure out who's actually going to be putting in the lines. That's who you reach out to. Ask them, hey, what are your power drop costs? And, what's the difference for line extension, or what's your cost for line extension? We started out with the 4 different states, and now I want to talk a little bit about what type of person might be looking in each state, because you may never have considered Idaho or Tennessee, and it could be a great fit for you, but maybe not. So here's what I would suggest in terms of who's a good fit for what state. If you're looking for a legacy homestead, something you can pass down to your kids, minimal drama, not having to deal with a lot of red tape, Idaho or Tennessee are probably going to be your best options. Both are going to give you that low yearly bleed, and they're also going to have pretty predictable infrastructure overall. The lowest carrying cost, that lowest yearly burn, and the easiest entry for people in terms of cost, you're looking at West Virginia 100%. If your goal is the cheapest carry cost while you build up cash reserves and then you can build what you want later, it's going to be West Virginia. And if you're looking for something in the West that's not cold, you're probably going to be looking in Arizona. Taxes and insurance there are really light, so that yearly carry is going to be low, so you can afford to spend a little bit more money on water solutions without regretting it. Because at the end of the day, buying land is easy. It's the easiest thing you can do as long as you have money, right? But what we're trying to afford is, death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Somebody's going to take this money for this money for that, a little bit more money for this. We're trying to avoid that. So again, Idaho, West Virginia, Tennessee, Arizona, great solutions. If you need help in any of those states or any of the other states around the U.S., let me know. I more than likely know somebody there locally that can help.